cochlea is folded out so that you can actually tell where the different frequency of the sounds are hitting inside your inner ear. But I'll just show you now. So we start out with the high frequencies. And they go into your inner ear. So as you can tell, they don't reach actually physically that far into the inner ear. Whereas when you have a little bit of a lower frequency, they reach a bit further. And very low frequencies, about 300 to 350 hertz, they reach even further into your ear. So it's actually a physical thing. It's not just like something fiddling around inside your ears. Okay. So when we go out in the field and we want to listen to the whales, we have to use some special equipment. Of course you can hear them with your ears, but if you want to make a recording, you need a computer and you need a hydrophone. And the problem is as well, if you just put your ear inside the water, your ear is adapted for hearing in air, whereas on the water it's different. You have air in here, and then it's difficult for the sound to actually be transmitted through your ear that's adapted for hearing in air. A hydrophone is basically like a microphone that's covered so you can use it underwater, so it's waterproof. Inside the hydrophone, there's a special ceramics called a piezo ceramic. It's not like a cup or a plate or something like that. It's special ceramics. So when the sound hits this ceramic inside the hydrophone, it changes structure a little bit, and that creates a current. And that's actually what you record on the computer. And my friend Marianne, she's holding a hydrophone. It's not the camera, it's the other black thingy. So that's one hydrophone. You can also just place your recorders on the seafloor, leave them there for months on, and let them record whatever comes around of whales. You can also use an array, then you have more than one hydrophone, and then you can actually position the whales. And you can find out which whale is saying what. Especially with dolphins you can use that, because dolphins got other frequencies than the baleen whales that got low frequencies. It's difficult with low frequencies. But with the dolphins, if you have 3 hydrophones, or 4, at least 3, then you can measure, you can tell, well, the sound hits this one first, the highest one, then it must be closer to this one. But then by telling the difference of arrivals for the other 2, you can position the animal, which one is saying something of the dolphins in the crowd. Okay. So why do cetaceans use sound? Can I ask you that question? Does anybody have any clues? Why would cetaceans use sound? To communicate. But why don't they just look at each other? Or touch each other? Or
sound travels underwater well.
That's true. That's a good point. Actually, water is 800 times heavier than air. And that's a point that I forgot to mention. If you think about water, it's so dense. So when you play a sound underwater, the molecules are closer to each other. So they go do-do-do-do-do. So the sound travels 4.5 times faster underwater than in air, because the simple reason, the molecules are more dense. There's one more thing. It's pretty dark down there sometimes. You cannot see anything. There can be a lot of sediment in the water. If you're a whale, how can you then communicate? If there's a lot of sediment between Brenda and I, how would I be able to tell her anything? Even though I wave my arms, she will go, oh, I can't see her. But I can do that with sound. If we're diving, we're down at 2,000 meters trying to find something down there. You can communicate with sound. Okay? So definitely for communication, but also for orientation. And they listen as well. They can listen for sounds on the water. They can listen for underwater mountains, like vibrations bouncing off walls, and big mountains on the water, and to find the prey as well. That's a good reason to use sound. Some of the other sounds they make, would be breaching, as that humpback whale here. You've seen them out here breaching around. And a lot of people always ask me, why do they breach, Katja? Why is that? We actually don't know yet. Nobody knows the reason. We cannot ask the whale, say, hey, why do you breach? But one of the reasons could be that it makes a giant splash. So if you are a male and you want to show off, you want to impress the ladies, you make a splash. And the bigger of a splash you make, the bigger of a male you are. And the longer of a distance it can be heard, you know? So that can be one reason. It could also just be because they have a lot of parasites growing on them and they want to get rid of them and they splash around to get them off. The flipper slapping can be heard miles away. That's another way to communicate. You go flap, flap, or with your tail as well. Get huge flippers and tails. Jaw clapping, that's more for the dolphins. If they're annoyed at each other, they can clap the jaws. So that's more like body sounds. Of course they have other sounds as well that they don't really use for communication, but can be used for to hear them. Every time they come to the surface, the blow can be heard can be heard from other whales as well. Some from that they have like sounds that are involuntarily made, and other animals can listen for those sounds. Even though they try to be quiet, they still make sounds underwater, just like us as human beings. When we move around, we make sounds we don't really want to make, but we still make sounds. So all the toothed whales, dolphins, the beaked whales, the killer whales, they use whistles and clicks, and then they have echolocation as well.